Hey, welcome to Musings episode number 290. We're here in Michigan. It's snowing outside, though I was already out early this morning, so and it
Yeah,
wasn't
roads
that
aren't
bad.
bad at this time, but it's
Yeah, they're
definitely
saying
accumulating.
they're saying between 12 and 4 is going to be the worst of it when it's really going to get bad.
Mhm.
But the nice thing is the salt trucks are out and everything else. I had a customer get a hold of me yesterday, and they placed an order. They placed it for the afternoon, but they had early delivery. And I said, well, if I get it in the morning, I will shop it early. Otherwise, I'm not going to be able to make it out because it's going to get bad in
Yeah.
the afternoon. And fortunately, it wasn't too bad. Got out, shopped her order for her. So they got their groceries they needed, and I made it back home. And
What are you projected to get in your area?
uh, well, they were from like 4 to 6 inches.
Right. Yeah, our area, the phone app is saying 4 to 8 inches for here.
Yeah, it keeps changing. I do know, like out in Dexter where I was at today, they had easily 2 inches, but the city of Dexter does their own plowing, and then of course Washington County's out that way, and the roads were pretty well cleared. So they taken care of it for the morning, and it slowed down when I was doing my shop. And when I delivered on the way home, it picked up a little bit. So I'm sure it's more. I'll have to get out there later today and shovel, but I figure, well, I'm waiting for them to come through and plow, and then I have to reshovel that anyway. So it's always a pain.
Yeah.
But not bad. Yes, this is kind of the we had some snow a while back, but really this is the first major snow for at least this year, calendar year. So
Mhm.
I could have done without it, but hey, it's all right. We're still in a drought, so we need the snow. So
For sure.
yeah. So how are you today, Scott?
Doing good. Overall, doing good. We got a couple new clients this week. So, well, I shouldn't say clients yet. They have to sign still. But we did some market analysis, home evaluations, which this time of year, you really this time of year is always kind of a transition because a lot of people will have a good understanding of what was happening last year.
Mm-hmm.
The question is, where are things going? And timing of your house, I might as well turn this into my ad read.
Yeah.
Timing of listing your house is crucial because a lot of times people who are selling their house, in their head they're thinking spring or Easter are their two benchmarks. So mid-March or whenever Easter falls for that particular year. And you also get a surge of buyers a lot of times. So you want to try to time the listing your house just before the surge, because what happens is the buyers tend to start looking a little bit early. And if you can get just ahead of that surge, so end of February, first week of March, if you can get your house listed then, you're going to have an advantage because you have no competition. And we've seen this a number of times with people where they've listened to our advice, listed a couple weeks earlier than they were planning. We got a really good offers for them. And then like 2 weeks later, 10 houses go up for sale in their subdivision. And when that happens, it's supply and demand. Buyers now have more options. They don't have to put as high of a price on your house. So it works pretty well for us. So give us a call if you're thinking about it. And also, we go through your house. We do a walkthrough. We give you we start off with a ballpark figure of what your house is worth. When we haven't seen it, we can just tell you an estimate. But once we walk through it, we go back and refine our numbers. So we give you a very accurate number based on what's going on in the market right now, and give you a whole marketing plan and everything on how we're going to attack this to really maximize what you get. And we had, like I said, we had two market analysis we just did, and really great rapport. I always say every week we put our relationships first. We really do. And we almost always end up with being friends with our clients afterwards, just because we have such a great time with them. So give us a call, 586-232-5144. Jill Webler and I are on that hotline number. So give us a call. We'll take care.
Excellent. And then our other sponsor here is Larger Family Chiropractic Center PC, located in Belleville, Michigan and Dexter, Michigan. They take great pride in providing the finest chiropractic care to each and every patient, offering on-site digital x-rays, massage therapy, orthotics by foot levelers, young limb essential oils, aromatherapy, full line of vitamins, all in a family-oriented environment. Give a call, 734-697-4244. They can see what's available for you either in Dexter, Michigan or Belleville, Michigan, and take care of you. You can also find them online at largerfamilychiropractic.com or here on Facebook, Larger Family Chiropractic Center PC, where they have 757 followers. You can click a call button, like, and everything else, and check them out. As you all know, I've been a customer of theirs and a patient for years, and it definitely has helped me stay well as I've dealt with ongoing issues I have from my car accident, as well as just normal aches and pains and just trying to be healthy. So definitely check that out. And if you're out there in the zone where all this shoveling's gonna be happening, there's quite a bit of the country's gonna get snow today in the northern part. Chiropractic is good for afterwards because you're gonna be sore and stiff, and they can help knock out those little kinks that are going on and keep you going well.
Yeah, and be careful with your form. Bend at the knees, all that fun stuff. But you can tweak your back doing shoveling.
Push more than lift. That's what they say with the shoveling. It's just push it as much as you can, lift what little bit you can, but don't try to take tons and lift it a little bit here, a little bit there. Or if you got a snowblower, you're that much further ahead. And if anybody wants to buy me a snowblower, I'd be happy to take it.
That's right.
So,
snowblowers definitely help.
Oh yeah, definitely, and all that stuff. So, let's tell Scott before we got on. We're not going to get into details of it. Just dropped last week. So give people a few weeks to watch it. We'll do a review later on. But that '90s show hit Netflix. It's the sequel to that '70s show that was on Fox back in the '90s.
Yeah,
when it started, and it's I gotta say, they had 10 episodes. It was a lot of fun, reminiscent of that 70s shows in terms of the writing. So you tell they had a lot of the same writers that came back. There's a few drops by the younger kids in there, little things like calling it dillweed, things like that. So they're trying to make that sound more of a regional thing for Point Place, Wisconsin, where they're supposed to be set up at. But I liked it. I liked you could actually nitpick it where it's like, okay, well, the original that 70 show ended on New Year's Eve 1979 going to 1980. That's when they ended it and said they were done. So now this is 15 years later, and all the so you got the Kelsos have a kid who's 18 or 17 or something like that. I think it was 16 or 17. So he's kind of like,
and
no, Kelso is
Kelso.
Jackie and Kelso. And so they have their kid, and then he's a little bit older. So I mean, time-wise, it's like, okay, so she must have, you'd have to almost like say basically, okay, she was already pregnant when the show ended. Yeah. And then the Donna and Foreman, they have their daughter who's 14, and that, so it kind of fits the time. So right after now, of course, when the show ended, they were a couple years out of high school, so it wasn't like they were young, anything like that. But they kind of just, I felt like they kind of set it up in the middle 90s, so it doesn't feel rushed because this takes place over a summer in 1995.
Yeah,
and it makes sense because the granddaughter doesn't live with the grandparents, but she says, I want to stay with them for the summer because where she lives in Chicago, she doesn't really have close friends, stuff like that. She meets friends right away, and it's kind of the same group. And of course, Kitty's all excited. And this is all in the first episode where she's actually got people around because it was just her and Red, and now there's kids back, and then she loves being the mom / grandma thing.
Yeah, they mention how much she misses having the house full and that kind of stuff. So this show is it's a new term, I think. I've never heard this term before, but they're calling it a requel. It's a sequel, but a reboot at the same time.
Yes.
So it's the story with new actors, new characters, but they're making it as a sequel to the old show by bringing the old cast in, and they rotate them as guest appearances.
Yeah, and everybody but Hyde makes an appearance.
Yes.
Hyde, of course, has legal trouble, so he's not going to make an appearance anywhere other than a courtroom. But everybody else pops in at least for one episode. My favorite was Fez. Yeah. The Fez stuff was hilarious.
What is he now, a hairdresser or something?
Yeah, he's a hairdresser, runs a big salon, has commercials and everything else. and it's just hilarious. It was hilarious. And then the neighbors now that live where Donna lived is a brother, sister, and they have different dads, because when you look at them right away, they have to clarify they have different dads for the gig. I was like, okay, so you have different dads. We can obviously tell you have different dads, and you'll see that when you watch the show. But I like both their characters, and in a lot of ways, the character, like the Kelso character, is similar to his dad, the dad Kelso, but he's also got his own thing. He's actually a little smarter. He's not as dumb. And then you got the neighbor brother that's a little more dumb, but he's got a girlfriend, so he's kind of the new Kelso, and then his girlfriend's kind of the Jackie. Yeah. So they have a lot of the same dynamics in there. So,
and then in real life, Jackie and Kelso are married in real life too.
Yeah, which is that's funny because it's they were when you hear their story, it's like they'd gone off, they were dating different people when the show ended. They had not seen each other in years, and then when he got divorced. I don't think she was ever married before, and then they kind of hooked back up and realized, hey, this kind of works. And
Little side note, later on, we're going to be talking about The Last of Us, but is it just me, or is this Apocalypse Donna? from that '70s show.
Yeah, yeah.
I feel like that could be Apocalypse Donna.
Well, it could be, yeah, definitely. I mean, but yeah, Donna though in real life has very dark hair now. So
Yeah.
of course she was wearing a wig through the whole the couple times she pops on. So
Hmm.
that's Laura Prepon or Prepon, whatever she goes by.
Yeah.
Uh, she's funny. I like her in this. I hadn't seen her in much of anything. I don't think she's been doing much acting in that. So, um, but it was definitely I liked it. Definitely, I recommend it.
I feel
Especially
they
if
did
you're
a good
especially if
job continuing on while making it fresh.
yeah, if you're a fan of that '70s show, I think you'll like it. They did do that '80s show way back when trying to do school thing, and
Yeah.
it sucked. But what sucked about it was it had nothing really to do with the people that were in that '70s show. They were just trying to
Right.
set it in the '80s, and they did. It was always the exaggerated '80s, where that '70s show felt more real. It felt like, okay, yeah, this is what we would have seen if we were just neighborhood kids. It wasn't the overly extreme '70s stuff you see in movies and stuff
Yeah.
like that, where they like everybody's walking around dressed up like uh, whatever from the disco era and crap like
Yeah.
that. They wore normal clothes. They drove the old Vista Cruiser and things like that.
Yeah. Well, the '70s shows really is kind of the definitive '70s show. The
Mhm.
'80s already has its own definitive show. It's called Saved by the Bell.
Yeah,
So
yeah,
it you know it that era already has its niche show. You
yeah.
know, so plus it's hard to continue a series when you don't focus on the people that mattered in the other series. So I think they're doing it right with that '90s show.
Yeah, no, and I like that. I mean, it's interesting on the stuff that's of course the kids marijuana was always a big deal with the '70s show, and it's definitely in this, even though they never completely say the words. So they have it here, but I think it's funny that the kids get turned on to it by finding their parents' old stash.
Yeah.
So that becomes part of that, and they do the whole center camera spinning around in the basement type stuff.
Yeah.
So I liked it a lot. It's something that I may go back and revisit. I hope they get renewed and do another season. I could. This would be fun if they kept it doing where each year, like so, next year would be like '96, and it's the summer again,
Yeah.
and the granddaughter comes back to visit for the week for the summer, and they can deal with that because it gives that instead of trying to deal with a long season or overly complicated things. Like, hey, she's here for this summer, and this is what happened this summer.
Yeah.
So I think it's
Well,
fun.
you mentioned it before we went on the air, and I think it's true too. This series, I think, reveals Red and Kitty are really the glue that holds the whole thing together.
Yeah, and that's why that show, that '80s show that they tried to do, I watched only a couple episodes, I remember, and it failed. It was just stupid. But yeah, Red was always. I mean, you got Red with always going to put his foot in somebody's ass, and and Kitty with her laugh. I mean, the laugh that Kitty does is just it's a,
I can't do it.
it's just I love the way she was on that laugh. She was just
Yeah.
great, and they're both just fantastic actors in their own rights, and they really bring a lot into that whole show. So I definitely
Yeah.
recommend that '90s show on Netflix. 10 episodes or half hour each. You can't go wrong.
Yeah. Another great show, time era wise, was The Goldbergs. That was a good '80s show, also.
I watched a couple of those and it wasn't bad. I just never got into it.
No,
Um,
I really liked that one a lot. I didn't watch it on a regular basis, but when I would catch it, I would watch it.
yeah, I think the only thing with the Goldbergs that about me was they never kept. It was always just kind of '80s ish. So they bounced around, and it wasn't. Uh, they were basically like going, okay, this was like '84, and then next year '85, and so
Yeah.
on. Part of it
Well,
was because they kept it in the '80s a lot longer than because that really would have been the
well,
'80s because
those
the show's been on for a while.
the Goldberg episodes are actually based upon the guy who writes it, his
Right,
old collection of VCR camera tape. Like he did a lot of filming as a kid,
right,
and so they based the episodes on the real life things. So Goldberg's, I felt, while it's still an exaggeration, it's a show, was
right.
more real life '80s, whereas Saved by the Bell was the fictionalized '80s with the bright colors and everything over the top.
Yeah, I mean, oh yeah. Well, Saved by the Bell was that it was at high school. Well, it started in junior high with at first to high school before they
Yeah,
changed to Saved by the Bell, but it was kind of that this is the supposedly the group of friends you always wanted in school. You always had your group, and that was it. And
right.
that was what you wanted was your as they call them now, as the young kids call them now,
Mhm.
squads. Which started with Taylor Swift and her squad, but and that's the thing. And the thing with Goldberg's, it's been on like 10 years, so I know it's
Mhm.
longer than uh the 80s have been around pretty much, but and that's the only thing. It's not bad. I think it's fine with it. You know, the Goldbergs, nothing wrong with it. It's definitely an exaggerated, and they bounced around a lot. And as the kids are getting older, it's like the kid's like 10 years older now, and it's still 1987. What?
Yeah, right.
So that's been kind of the things with that. But I think it's fine. I think I know what the Goldbergs was premise. So again, I watched a little. I just didn't get into it when it initially started on, and I've watched a little bit here and there on reruns, and it's funny. It's well written.
Yeah.
So
yeah, for sure.
but it's just
The
any show
creepy
you
thing
need
about
something
those shows, the creepiest part about those shows though is the teacher would always follow these kids through their whole career, like Mr. Feeney. Like when they're
Boy
in
Meets World,
elementary,
yeah.
Boy Meets World.
Yeah.
Like it's kind of weird that this guy follows them to every school they go to, even into college. It's like, okay, this guy's stalking or something. There's something creepy going on here. Like the guy's changing schools to stay with the kids.
Well, yeah, I mean he changed his role a lot of ways. He was always just meant to be that. He was when it goes to the basic, the basics of writing some of these like different stories, like even Star Wars. That he's the wizened wizard that they always need to have someone to go to, and because they, the parents were there or something like that, but really they need the wise wizard. And
but it's funny how watching those shows back, like at the time, I thought nothing of it when I was younger.
Yeah.
But looking back, it's like, that's kind of creepy. Like Fonzie in Happy Days. It's like, why is this 50-year-old guy hanging out with high schoolers? Like,
he wasn't creepy. 50 back then. He was a few years older than them for sure.
But he looked 50 when you're young.
Well, I mean, they all looked old back then, though. I mean, you'd watch Happy Days and all that stuff, and every single one of them looked like they were in their 30s already, and they were in their 20s.
Like Paul Rudd right now is older than Mr. Miyagi was. And Mr. Miyagi looked 90.
Yeah. So yeah, and that's the whole thing. It's stuff like that. But yeah, I mean, the thing with with Fonzie though, I mean, he started off as this ancillary character. He was the older guy out there. And that was just they're all like, oh yeah, he's one that was kind of everybody had in their area, kind of like in another 70s based movie, but it's done in the 90s, was Days of Confused. You got the Matthew McConaughey character, and he was the older guy, been out of school for a while, still picking up on high school chicks, but he'd been out for a few years, and all that other stuff. So there's always that older guy, and I saw the team where I grew up, where there's always an older guy around. It's basically and that's what Fonzie had to do, but it's like, young kids looked up to him because he was doing all the adult stuff they wanted to do, but then he kind of still hung around because he liked that adoration.
Actually, I just saw an interview with Ron Howard, and they talked to him about Happy Days and Fonzie and all that. And it was interesting. So what was happening at the time is Happy Days was really huge at first, and then things started becoming very character oriented, like J.J. Walker with Dynamite and the catchphrases, and all these other shows started picking up in the ratings and starting to hurt Happy Days because they had those people with the catchphrase and stuff. And so with Fonzie, he wasn't meant to be the main character like he was, but they were trying to compete with that. And they noticed Fonzie was getting some traction. So then they started moving Fonzie more to the center of the show. And they actually wanted to rename the show Fonzie's Happy Days and make Fonzie the center star. But they didn't want to lose Ron Howard. And so they approached him. And Ron Howard said at the time, he told them no, that, if you want to do that, I'll be happy moving on. So they ended up not doing it. But they still made Fonzie a very central part where the show kind of revolved around him. But it was because people were starting to, instead of these family-oriented shows, people were going for the catchphrase guy. Yeah.
Well, and that's kind of, I mean, it was the first season with you had Fonzie was wearing the basically the members only jacket is what it looked like.
Right.
He didn't wear the leather jacket, and you also had the older brother who really didn't.
Who disappeared.
Yeah, he goes upstairs and never came down again. He just passed away last year too. I read something about that because I saw where Ron
Howard mentioned him. He's like, he just disappeared one day.
No, he actually talked about him. He actually said he talked about how he was a good actor. He kind of got. And they mentioned that it was a little bit.
But I think in the show, I think Ron Howard was saying they never addressed why he just was gone. Like
that was an easy way to write him off the show because he wasn't even detrimental to any storylines.
Right.
So they did that. But Ron Howard was the star of the show. The show was built around him, and that's partly because he'd done the show called Love American Style, and they'd done a segment called Happy Days. That was in 1972. And then you have the George Lucas film coming out, American Graffiti.
Yep.
which brought that nostalgia for the 50s all around into the 70s. So they started to take that Happy Days Love America song and create a pilot with that and go forward. So that's how that came about. And he was tapped for that. In a lot of ways, he didn't want to do it. I remember seeing artists, he's talked about that because he didn't want to get pigeonholed as that character. Plus, he wanted to start directing. He was like, I want to kind of get, they're like, do this. You can, you can do other stuff on set. And that's where he started, learning to direct. And he went off to do stuff with Corman too. And that's where he cut all his chops. And when he left, because he was done, he said, okay, I'm done with it. But yeah, with Bonzi became the center part of it. And so it changed that whole dynamic of that show and that stuff. And if you look at stuff they did afterwards, like they did some cartoons, stuff like that, it was all Fonzie situated. It was, that's where they kind of get like a Fonzie's Happy Days type titling,
Right?
Things like that. But yeah, the catchphrases of the 70s were a big deal, and on all those series. I mean, you had that, and then a spinoff from that was you had Laverne and Shirley, which had all their own little kitschs and stuff like that. And then, of course, another spinoff, which was the oddest spin of all, but still was great, was Mork and Mindy.
Yeah, that was crazy that came from Happy Days.
Yeah.
What did was All in the Family from the Jeffersons?
No, All in the Family was first, and then
Jefferson spun off from them.
No, was that from them? Yeah, I think it was. Yeah, because he was a neighbor.
Okay.
I believe that was the way that went. Because and then they All in the Family changed a few years later its title and kind of revamped the show a little bit, because that's when he bought the bar, and that's also after Rob Reiner's character had left in that. So
yeah.
But yeah, the Jefferson. Yeah, I mean, and a lot of these shows are all done by the same people over and over again. Because the Jeffersons came out in 75. I believe All in the Family was around 70, 71. Might have even been 69 at that point. And it's funny how people look back and they try to talk about how that show is so racist and everything else. Like, no, All in the Family actually is a show that's, if you pay attention, they're actually talking about all these different things in a comedic way, but they're actually addressing them.
Yeah. So. Well, unfortunately now comedy is under assault by groups, and you tell a joke and you got to be canceled now.
Yeah. So I was just looking up real quick, but yeah, the Jeffersons, Isabel Sanford played Louise Jefferson. She appeared in a 1971 episode of All in the Family. And it centered around her son Lionel, and then her husband George, moving next door to Archie and Edith in the working class section of Queens. And then they decided to create a show especially around that after a couple of years. So yeah. That's why they had the "Moving On Up" song.
Yep. So it's a catchy song. It's a good one.
Yeah. So and it was funny. I like the Jeffersons. That was a funny show too back then. So, but yeah, we got to spin off from talking about that 90s show, that 70s show, and talking about actual 70s shows.
Yeah. You never know where things are gonna go.
I know. So, Bad Batch. I watched today's episode just a little bit ago.
I still got to watch that one.
Oh, fantastic episode. Last week's though, we had we're seeing some different dynamics build within the groups here. I'm liking what they're doing, because they're not trying to constantly deal with the Empire. We saw a little bit of that. Now we're getting a little spin-off. We're getting this last week was the pod race they had going on. So we got to see a little pod racing in the type of pod racing in that.
This one called it. Now this is pod racing. Anakin's line in episode 1 there of the movies.
Yep.
But yeah, I really enjoyed this. They I like that they're kind of subdividing the group so we get a little bit more into the individual characters' abilities and personalities. So I really enjoyed this. Teo, the droid, the race droid, he was funny.
Yeah, I like that. I like that he kind of made a smart ass a little bit. And
yeah, a little sarcastic droid.
Yeah.
And here you see, so, the basic summary of it is it's a racing droid that's doing these stylized pod races that include weapons. He races for what's Rhea Perlman does the voice.
Well, it's Sid. It's
Sid.
Sid does that. She's the one that is always sending them on their missions and that.
Yeah. So this droid races for Sid, and they're out there, and Teo it's no rules in these pod races. So Teo gets taken out, and Tech here ends up taking over and does quite the job.
Yeah. Well, they call it, and actually they don't call it pod racing. They call it riot racing.
Riot racing. There you go.
Yeah.
Yeah,
but basically it was done like in the pod racing style and all that. So of Episode 1 Star Wars. So it was
yeah,
neat to see that in this at this current time there's still some type of this event going on somewhere.
yeah. But I enjoyed it. I felt I feel like Omega's getting less annoying, so I think they're
I
maturing her a little bit. And
2 of the episodes already she's gotten in trouble. She got in trouble with the pod racing by running her mouth, and then earlier
mhm.
on she did. But today's episode won't get into anything on that. But she was a little better in this one. And we learn this week's episode a little bit more of the character we've met in the last couple episodes, where she's kind of she sent the Bad Batch out where they went to Dooku's castle. Now we get to see who she kind of is a little bit more in this episode today.
Oh,
So we'll
okay.
talk about that next week. So I don't think that's too much of a spoiler. It's just that's what happens right from the beginning in that. So, but I like that we're getting more of these characters. We're learning more about them, or everything they're doing, as well as we're seeing different parts of the galaxy that don't have to always do with the Empire and the Rebellion.
Yeah,
So.
that's the fun part of the Star Wars universe. Is there's a lot that they can cover, and give very unique stories without even touching the main timeline.
Mhm.
So good stuff. Always enjoy it.
Oh yeah, I'm looking forward to seeing next week's episode already because it's a great episode.
You want to talk about the Netflix movie next?
Yeah, let's get into that. So
Yeah. So I stumbled across, just by chance, a new movie came up on Netflix called Jung-E, which is basically an AI movie. It's a better version of iRobot. Me and Brett were agreeing on before the show started. Very well done. And here, I'll put this up here. Let's see.
yeah,
I find it interesting, though. They call it Jung-E, the robot, but the pronunciation of the character's last name is Young, not Jung.
well that's the it's Korean, South Korean, and it's
Yeah.
and
But
the
you would think
J's
they
are
would call the
J's are
robot the Young E instead of the Jung E.
well actually they have Young, and they had someone there that was Young, and then there's Young, and then there's Young. It's how it's slight differences in how they pronounce it.
Yeah.
And J is pronounced as a Y there, but the Y is pronounced slightly different. So that's where
Yeah.
the differences is in that.
But
So.
here you see, this review says Jung E adds heart to a story about AI brains. I agree with that sentiment. I went into this kind of thinking, oh, okay, I'll watch this. This is some kind of, like Terminator type movie, and usually your assumption is the robot, of course, is going to go evil and try to wipe everyone out. But this kind of goes the opposite direction. It turns into a very good, I don't want to give away spoilers, but I don't think this is a spoiler. It turns into a good relationship story. The AI is based upon, this is the near future, about 100 years from now. They're able to transfer your thoughts into an AI brain, and then that AI brain continues your consciousness, your experiences, whatever.
Yeah.
And I like how they address it. They address different levels of ownership with your thoughts, depending on what program you do, and then how they can use that and manipulate it, and also what how does that affect a person, and their actions. So I thought it was really well done.
Yeah, and it definitely, like I said, if you put this on, I remember seeing this on Netflix, and I was like, okay, I'll have to check this out. Check it out. It would play like a light trailer, and I was like, okay, good special effects. And I'm liking. We're seeing a lot of these international films that are coming from the Asian market, especially that Netflix is paying for. They're actually they're not just buying a done film; they're actually paying for this from the get go. It's part of their building up their markets elsewhere. But then they were able to bring them here. The voiceover work into English is done very well on a lot of these. I'm very happy with it. Sometimes I forget that they actually didn't film it in English; they filmed it in Korean.
Yeah, you totally forget.
Yeah.
A lot of times it's cheesy the way it comes across. Also, with the Asian films, they usually do a good job with the action sequences, but the way they tell their stories are kind of clunky a lot of times. I feel like it doesn't translate to the English market well. This could have totally been a Hollywood-made movie, I felt. With the way the story unfolded and the emotions and everything. I felt it was so well done.
Yeah, it's about an hour and 35 minutes long, so it's only like an hour and a half. And I think that's where the key is. A lot of these movies from the Asian, they always have about an extra half hour they could cut out, in my opinion, because they have too
Mhm.
much of exposition that on stuff that really doesn't matter. But that's kind of how the Asian market does with their films. Um, and this one here was a tight, here's the basic story, and it's not too basic, but it's basic enough to where they get you the basics of the world. Here's what happened. Here's what
Mhm.
happened in space. Here's what's going on here, and let's drop you right into this battle
E-
sequence and everything else, and then they go right into the story.
yeah. And a lot of times, not to make it stereotypical, but I feel like it's true. The Asian films, I feel like they like to hyper focus on the action in a way that kind of makes it otherworldly. So it kind of takes you out of reality. I
Mhm.
love the choreography of a lot of those films, but it doesn't feel real. I felt like this was more American style action choreography that they used for this film,
Mhm.
where it was more intense and hard hitting and bam, 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 you know. And for me, it kept you in it better,
The
if that makes
filmmaking,
sense.
yeah, the filmmaking and framing and everything else really felt more American versus that.
Yeah.
But again, this is South Korean. South Koreans are, when you look at the Chinese filmmaking and you look at Japanese
Yes.
filmmaking, all of them there are different styles on that. And the South Korean, what I have seen of different things from South Korea, always have more of an American flair style
Yeah.
to it. The Chinese have they try to throw in a little bit more of their mysticism, and the
Right.
same thing with Japanese. And Japanese have a little more, like I said, of just they like to spend a little more time
Right.
just kind of slow burn and everything else to get you to the point. Um, it's like if you go
But
watch some of the Kurosawa films, things like
yeah.
that.
And also with South Korea, they also did Squid Games.
Yep.
And so I feel like they're definitely an emerging market for world entertainment for movies and stuff.
Yeah, I think so, and I think it has to do with there's a lot more of American influence over there than even in Japan or
Yeah.
China, of course. Even in the Hong Kong market, because you got to remember, mainland China filmmaking was always different than the Hong Kong filmmaking. If you go back through the '80s and '90s, especially, and watch some of the John Woo stuff, he was Hong Kong filmmaking, and he was kind of the standard for that. And some of his films, like if you can find them, like The Killers is really good. Oh gosh, the other one, Hard Boiled is a fantastic film that he did that made the rounds. That's how I got turned on to his work. And while it's all good, there's stuff in the middle of it where it's just a little. He probably could have trimmed it down. In America, they probably would have cut a lot of that out. But the Hong Kong filmmaker likes to have that extra, and it's more character building. It's not necessarily needed for the story, but I always like it just because you learn more of the character. So it's definitely
So
worth checking out.
with John Woo, I didn't realize he did Face Off.
Yeah, after he got big with Hard Boiled, they brought him over to do American. Got to say, hey, you're the hot director now because did all the circuits and stuff like that. So he did like Mission Impossible 2. Face Off was before that. Better Tomorrow was another one that he did over there that was really good, and um, just he's a fantastic director. Of course, he
Yeah.
studied a lot of the American action films,
Yeah.
and so he brought a lot of, it's like with like he wanted to do in I believe it was the Killers, this whole sequence at a jazz club. He couldn't do it. Well, he got the clout to do it with Hard Boiled. That's where the main character Chang Yun Fat is playing in a jazz club, because in Hong Kong really jazz is not anything, but he liked jazz, so he wanted to throw that in there. um but yeah, he's got a lot of great films he did over the years. And definitely, we go back, you can see a lot of stuff he did for many years through the Hong Kong filmmaking. So he's, if you're wanting to study films from that area, if we're going to check out the John Woo films.
Yeah.
The Better Tomorrow films are always good. Like I said, Killer is good. Hard Boiled's fantastic. After that, that's when he did Hard Target, and then Broken Arrow.
I
Uh,
liked Broken Arrow. That one
yeah.
was Broken Arrow also gave a great cheering moment, I remember, in the theater.
Mm.
They kill off Steven Seagal early in the movie.
Oh yeah, and at that point,
And everyone applauded in the theater, I remember, when
well,
Seagal dies.
yeah, by the mid '90s, those people were getting tired of
Yeah.
Seagal. So and
Yeah.
but yeah, if you go back and look at all the stuff he did, like just American films, he did Wind Talkers. That was a great film.
Yeah.
And then Paycheck was okay, stuff like that. And he hasn't done anything since 2017. He did Manhunt, but I think he's kind of retired now, mostly
Yeah.
retired and that stuff. But yeah, definitely the John Woo films. A lot are very hard to find nowadays. I know early days of DVD, I originally ordered. I've got them in my bunch of DVD stuff. Like the Killers actually have a Hong Kong DVD version. It's all region, so I
Yeah.
can play it here because I couldn't find it here. So I had to
Yeah.
order it through a legitimate place over in Hong Kong, and then the Hard Boiled is out of print through Criterion Collection. If they ever release that again under Blu-ray, I would rebuy that one because it's such a fantastic film. So, but it's because I'm a film guy. I studied film and when I started learning filmmaking in Eastern Michigan, I got into a lot of different stuff and realized how much, as much as I liked movies, I found I really liked cinema and film as well as movies. I really can classify different films and movies and all that stuff differently from each other, even though they all get projected onto a screen.
Right.
Yeah. So
Cool.
yeah. So there's my little education on filmmaking.
Good old filmmaking. Good
Yeah.
stuff.
Yeah. So
So, shall we jump into The Last of Us?
yeah, this has been fun. Wow, 2 episodes in already, and uh, really just this last episode it went by so fast. When the credits roll, I'm like, wait a minute, I just put this on. It was it felt quick, but I think it was still 45 minutes or so.
Yeah, it went by pretty well. Very enjoyable. Like last week, we talked about the pilot episode was very good. First episodes are hard to do. They really are. You're setting up a whole world. You're trying to keep the pace so people don't lose interest. Here they had a double thing where they're trying to adapt the game to live action, which has its own challenges. But I'd give it an A+ for initial episode. And the second episode, I feel they really ramped it up and kicked it up a notch.
No, they did. It was what I liked is we got the first episode where we got the beginnings. You see how everything started off, where our main character at is now, and then they set up what the whole premise of him leaving where he's at is. And the second episode was, instead of like dragging it out or little things like that, there's like they're moving forward, and now we got to learn more about the actual world. And they call them clickers, the creatures. And we get to see some different ones on that. And you got to watch these stuff after the episodes if you have HBO Max or on HBO itself. They talk about a lot of how they are trying to incorporate the game into the show. And they want to not just have it to where anybody watching it enjoys it that never played the game, but the game people are going, oh, there's that. They're using a lot of the same sounds. They're trying to same look. They're not trying to redefine everything. They want to make it feel like the game has translated over.
Yeah, what's amazing is I've been spending more time than I should watching comparisons of the actual scene in the show to the scenes in the game. They really hit it spot on. Like it's pretty amazing how much they're mirroring each other, but but still managing to keep it fresh, so the game players aren't like, yeah, I already know this. So they're doing a great job of balancing the two.
Yeah. Like I was looking up on Wikipedia here just to get some information in. They filmed for 200 days for this season, so they're spending anywhere almost 3 weeks per episode.
Wow.
So I mean, and really, I'm watching this, and they have some pictures here show some of the locations where they filmed at. A lot of definitely special effects, so you can of changing the world around, things like that. But the detail within everything, you can tell they're spending some time on this. They're not trying to make this shots rushed or anything like that. And there's a lot of cuts in a lot of different sequences, so you can tell they had to film a lot of different ways because the tight corners, tight room, you get a little claustrophobic feel, and they can't have like 5 cameras going, so they're having to change angles quite a bit as they're doing that. But I'm just amazed how good the show is, because I was when I saw it was coming out, I was like, okay, we'll see. I hear it's a good game, stuff like that. But if it's another just basic zombie Walking Dead type thing, but now they're doing things differently, and the characters you're actually starting to want to get to know a little more about. And this last episode, I guess, there's a character that you want to get to know about, and you're not going to get to know about it anymore.
Yeah, they do a good job of, if you don't know the games, which I don't, they do a great job of really setting up some characters where you really expect them to be at least the full season, and they're not. And they do a good job of that. But they also do a great job, like I was telling Brett off camera, they do a great job in reverse too, where they, like the opening scene here, they they go. It's a flashback, and you're kind of seeing when the virus first starts, or the fungus first starts, I should say, and they talk about how they have to bomb the cities to eradicate it. But
Mhm.
the person doing the initial exam, the way they set it up, you fully expect this creature is going to come to life and like bite her fingers off, and it doesn't happen. So they do a good job of also creating anticipation without following through. So
Well, yeah,
you never know when it's going to come.
and they revealed a lot in that little bit too, not of the early onset, but then when she sees that it's those fibers, that fungus, and the fact
Yeah,
that even though the body is now no longer been can move because it was shot in the head, typical zombie kill, um, the fungus was inside the body was still alive, so it shows that it could still uh, transfer over to somebody else.
yeah, it's like feeding on the body or something.
Yeah, and it's still living within the body. It just can't animate the body anymore.
Right.
So that was interesting. That so
Yeah, but they're doing a great job of world building. Like the special effects on this are top notch. I mean, they really grab that apocalypse feel,
mhm.
and they're hitting like they're going through a city, and there's a lot of detail they capture, and there's a lot of shots where I envision it being like, I bet this is a shot in the game, like where you see everything happening, you know.
Yeah, and that's the whole thing. Is that I've seen a few pop up, like you've probably been watching. It's just here's the game, here's the show, and they're trying to capture some of those cut scenes
Right.
in the way this is, and that's what it looks like to me is more cutscenes. And it could be actual gameplay in some of it, but they definitely want to keep the gaming feel to it, uh, and I think it helps with the storytelling as well.
Yeah.
So I'm very
As far
excited.
as the zombie genre goes, there's different schools of thoughts with zombies, how they're portrayed. These are fast moving zombies. These ones run, so you got to be quick and on your feet, and that's good. Uh, but what's different about this is I like how they explain the hive mind between them. So in real life, there's these funguses that can be miles and miles long, where it's this whole network of interconnected fungi, and it's actually one giant organism. That's how they're explaining these zombies. This fungus in them, they're all connected. So, like they said, if you happen to trip over one of these fungus vines,
Hmm.
if it's part of the connected route, the zombies a mile away will wake up and come for you because you triggered it. So you got to be careful where you step and things like that. So it's an interesting way that you're doing it. We're also seeing there's different types of zombies, like these clickers that they show, like the brains are kind of like exploded
Well,
out
it's
or
it's, it's the
something.
it's the fungus itself is just kind of
Yeah.
taking over the entire head up through here.
Yeah.
So as we've learned real quick, is those ones are blind. They can
Right.
hear though. So it's all done. It's kind of like it's a like some different things, different creatures where they can't see you, but they can hear you.
Right.
Stuff like that. So that was the thing. But yeah, we see in action them. We see the fungus. We see how that works when the fungus you see it moving, and especially sending the signal out that there's something going on here. So we see this horde that's all laying on the ground, rolling around. Often get the signal and pop up, and they start running towards where that signal was.
Yeah. Here's one here. I love the way they said they hired actors who actually are fans of the game,
Hmm.
and so they hired actors who really got the movement, that the way they move and twist their head around. They do a great job of making it pretty creepy, especially with having it in the dark room and like pretty much some light from the windows, but mainly flashlight lights highlighting it. So you get a really good like scary feel in the scene of you feel like they're at danger at any given moment.
Yep.
So I don't know if there's here's an old one that kind of just grew into the wall, and the fungus is just slowly
Well,
devouring.
and I think that was interesting because that's when they mentioned about don't touch it, don't touch this stuff because it knows
Yeah,
and stuff like that. So
yeah. So good stuff. I recommend the series. I think it's a great balance. It's basically if Walking Dead was more like Game of Thrones, or
yes,
early the first couple seasons of Walking Dead, where you truly didn't know what was going to happen, and later seasons they started protecting their characters, and I think that's
well,
where
they
they
also
kind of went
stopped
downhill.
moving them. This is a kind of a road trip, movie. It's
Yeah,
they've got a place they need to get to, and if they get to that place, then what's going to happen after that. That's where, of course, something else is going to happen. But it's not. I don't think it's going to be where we're. Walking Dead became too much of trying to establish a town in a
Yeah.
situation where we're just going to stay here. Where this is like, okay, those towns are already set up. It's 23 years later; they've already been set up. Now it's these people that are being forced to stay that want to get out,
Yeah.
and they have a reason to get out with this one, which is they think they may have the cure for this fungus.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah. When
hey,
story. Oh, go ahead,
hey, Kevin.
Kevin. When storytelling, especially if you're going to go with a long story, there's different levels of story going on. You have the character story arc that's
Mhm.
happening, but you also have a world story arc that's happening. And I think that's the problem with Walking Dead is they ignored the world story arc.
Right.
When you're in a short term story, you can focus on just the characters, but at some point, the world story arc has to happen too, and they just never addressed it. Whereas this one, okay, there's hope for humanity. There's a potential cure. There's something driving these people. And I always felt like with Walking Dead, it kind of lost that, where it just like you're in this daily grind forever.
Yeah.
There's no end point to come. So, but
Well, and
yeah,
that was the whole thing. It's just the um, Walking Dead just kind of lost its way along the way. There was no
yeah,
definite end there. You need a, and this one sounds like the creators of the series here. They have a definite end point they're going to get to.
yeah.
So
They
I think it's
became their own name.
yeah.
The show was The Walking Dead.
But speaking of storytelling, we still have the Indiegogo going on for the Crimson Shadows 4 second
Yes.
chance. So we should pop all
Yeah.
that up and show that off a little bit if you got that
Yeah,
handy.
I'll pull that up. So it's I don't know. Indiegogo I could never quite. I'm much better at Kickstarter. Maybe I should have ran this on Kickstarter, but this is your chance, second chance. It's all of the Crimson Verse stuff is available. So we have issues 1 through 4 available of the comic books. We have Frankenstein. We have Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde. So if you've not been part of this yet, we have everything here available. We have the starter kit. It's $65. You get the whole pack. You get all 4 unlimited covers of that. You get the 2 novels. You get the digital editions. So this is like, if you haven't gotten anything, get in on board here. Our return rate is great. People love the story. Once you get involved, you want to get the next issue. So we have a great return of customers going on, in which our issue 4 Kickstarter that just happened recently, we were very successful there. This is just a second chance to try to get the people who haven't jumped on board yet. So check it out. You can type in Crimson Shadows, or I'll just do this. Let me copy the link and go. Oops, go here. Crimson Shadows. All right, I just posted the link. Oh, well, I didn't put. I had a different thing I was typing. I didn't realize it. So it says need a realtor at the end. Need a realtor? Call me.
Yes.
I started typing. I was going to put that on when I was doing the ad read.
Yeah, well, where the link actually goes, since you got need a realtor there.
Good question. Here, ignore that.
Yeah.
There. Now it's. I didn't realize that was still typed into the text box.
Yeah. Did you share the page at all, or
the Indiegogo?
Yeah. Can you?
Yeah. So if you go to bardstone.com,
Yeah.
the links are in there. I've posted on my Facebook and stories and all that fun stuff. So
Yeah. So, I mean, it's out that's also what we've been doing. And you talk about the return. We've seen this at the conventions, which we've got less conventions this year just because of schedules, the way they fell. So it's we've had people that bought the first issue at a show and come back later that day and bought whatever we had available, 2 and or 3, and hopefully some of them will be buying 4. But definitely, if you're interested in reading some great stuff, that all 3 of us, Scott's the writer on this and illustrator. Kevin's doing all the inks. I'm doing all the lettering. We've all done some covers, which some are still available. But definitely, it's a fun read. I'm enjoying lettering it right now, going through everything. I'm about 6 more pages to go. So
Yeah, we're close to being done. Once Brett finishes, we'll do our final read through, make sure if there's any final edits, and then we'll be ordering the artist proofs, and then things will start shipping
Mhm.
once we approve the print run. A couple weeks after that, we'll be able to start shipping. So we're excited to get this into everybody's hands. We think everyone's going to love it. I'm so thrilled with the quality that we're putting into this. And here, let me go put this back up. I can show you some sample pages really quick.
Yeah.
Um, but these are pages from some of the past issues. And then this is some pages from the current issue, issue 4. This is the newest one. But I'm really liking the way these are turning out. Our combined efforts, I think, we've talked about this in the past. If any one of us did these issues solely by ourselves, I think it would turn out very different. But our combined efforts, I feel like it brings up the quality to another level. So,
Mhm.
and this is an exclusive cover for the Indiegogo campaign. So you can get this one. It's an homage to Captain America Annual Number 8 by Mike Zeck. It's a famous one of Wolverine fighting Captain America. So this one pays tribute to that cover. We have our Jack the Ripper / vampire fighting the bounty hunter here. So there you have it. Tons of
Excellent.
covers to choose from past issues. All kinds of stuff to choose from. So check it out.
Yeah, definitely. It's like I said, and then coming up, we will be sharing the next couple weeks here in March. Our next Kickstarter is already set up for the 5th anniversary edition of the Creatures and Creators book that Kevin did. It
Yeah.
features artwork by Kevin, as well as Scott and I have artwork involved inside that too, as well
Yep.
as several other artists. So that'll be a fun one. If you didn't get that one the last time it was out, this is updated with some new stuff, and I did a little editing on some of the bios, things like that, to help Kevin out, and so hopefully he liked that. If he didn't, he scrapped it, so we'll never know.
I think
But
Kevin did share the cover.
yeah, on Facebook, I believe he did. Yes.
Let me find that real quick. I don't see it. Oh, he put it on Facebook, not in the message thread.
Yeah, I thought it was on Facebook. Yeah.
All right, let me find the post. I'll share it so people can see the. It looks pretty sweet. Here it is. Let's share that. I wish it was faster to click on all these to share. Where is that? There it is. There it is. So that's the one of the covers. I don't know if is he doing multiple covers with different ones. I don't
No,
remember.
I believe he's just doing the one. So
Okay, so there's that cover of Creatures and Creators. So he does a good. Kevin has a love of horror, and what's really cool about this book that's different is usually everything is focused on these people's creations.
mhm.
And people know all about Frankenstein and Dr. Jekyll, Mr. Hyde, and all these different characters, but Kevin gets into more about the creators themselves in this and what their creations were. So it's a really fun book, great artwork, and you guys will definitely enjoy it.
Oh yeah, oh yeah. I went. I remember again. I got I was had artwork in the first edition, and I read through it afterwards, and I got it, and I was like, wow, this is really cool. I like
Yeah,
reading about some of these different creators and about who they were a little more, and it makes you appreciate some of the work they did too. And if you didn't read some of their works, maybe you want to go back and read some of that stuff.
yeah,
If you never read Lovecraft, read about him, and then say, okay, this is kind of cool. I want to go and read his novelizations and stories and things like that. So
yeah, for
a
sure.
lot of cool stuff out there. So hey, this has been a fun episode. Got anything else we need? I think we covered everything pretty well today. So
I think so. Yeah, it's
yeah.
this time of year, you got much going on as far as you know. Spring is when all the fresh stuff will come out. What do we have to look forward to? We got Mandalorian coming out beginning of March.
Right. Next month is the Ant-Man Wasp movie, which I bought tickets to go see.
Yep.
And
Oh, I know. If you're a fan of Teen Wolf, it was a series on MTV. They have a new one coming out on Paramount Plus, I believe tomorrow. It's called Wolfpack. So it's a
okay.
continuation. It's kind of a sequel type I think it's a little series they're doing. So all that gang is coming back and they're continuing that Teen Wolf story. me and Ashley loved it when she was a young teenager, and me and her would always watch it together. So we're looking forward to watching that. I believe it comes out tomorrow on Paramount Plus.
Oh, very cool. Yeah, I remember didn't watch the entire series when I first did. I did watch like the first 3 seasons, I think.
Mm-hmm.
So I missed like I think it was like 4 or 5, and it was good. I just kind of dropped
Yeah,
off. It was a MTV series, I believe, originally. So
correct. MTV.
yeah,
Yeah, it was done on MTV. They did a series. It was a serious look, but it wasn't as, I don't know if it's the right word, but as cheesy as like CW series. It was something in between like CW meets Netflix. It was like
it was like early CW stuff that was actually trying to be serious versus
yes,
like supernatural things like that.
yes,
But it still had the teen element involved on that.
correct.
So it was definitely it had that MTV
Yeah,
feel a little bit, but it was actually done a higher quality, better quality than they were doing on MTV and a lot of other stuff at the time. So
yes.
so definitely it was a well done show, and I know a lot of people liked it for when it was out.
Yeah, it was
So
very well done. So I'm looking forward to seeing this continuation of these characters, seeing how it's going. Probably the most famous in the group right now because of his portrayal as Superman in the CW Arrowverse is Tyler Hoechlin.
okay,
He plays Superman in the CW Arrowverse. He is one of the main characters in this series, so that's how we first got to know him. So good stuff. Check it out.
yeah. And then speaking of just streaming real quick, I was able to watch Violent Night on Peacock the other night. It's on
Oh,
Peacock streaming now, so if you have Peacock, check it
oh,
out. It's well worth it. So you
nice.
have to have the premium, not the free version.
Okay.
Which if you Google, they may still have some deals going on. I got the or the paid version, which still has a little bit of ads, but it was like $20 for the first year.
Yeah.
So it was not bad for a full year for only $20, and I've already earned that in some of the movies I've watched on that. So
Oh, also that reminds me too. Paramount. When is Evil coming out for the next season?
uh,
Enough of this. It's
I think
taking
it's gonna
too long.
be. Let me see here.
But Michael Coltrane, what's his name that plays the priest?
Mike Coulter. Yep.
He is in the new movie Plane with Gerard Butler right now that just came out. There's a
Okay.
movie out. He's in that. He's alongside Gerard Butler. So if you like him as an actor, you can see him in the theater.
Well, just 2 days ago, Screen Rant shared the Evil season 4's Leland story details are teased by the actor who plays him. Let's see here. A couple of, they haven't given an exact date, but it looks like
Okay.
people are thinking it's gonna be June, which would be
Okay.
if there's it's usually the summertime when it comes out,
Yeah.
and it would tie into like if it's like last year. Now I won't be able to because I'll be at a table the whole weekend, but in San Diego, I'm sure that they would do another panel.
There you go.
And the Evil panel, when I watched it last year, because I spent the whole day in that one panel room question, because I had Evil and um, the Orville and a couple bunch of other ones I wanted to see. They actually showed the episode that was going to air the next day, so I saw it the day ahead of time.
Yeah.
And then they had pretty much almost the entire cast there. A couple of them hadn't made it because I couldn't get it at the time, couldn't return from Canada because of the restrictions for going back for filming and that, but that should all be done now. But yeah, I'm looking forward to seeing more Evil. That was a great show. It was a great show.
Yeah.
And I believe this season 4, I don't know if it's gonna be the final one, but I think they're getting close to probably, if it's not the 4th, they're probably like the 5th season wrapping it up. Because they're getting through some things now, which is definitely making it more and more evil.
Yeah, it definitely feels like they need to be, because at some point, if you keep ramping things up, like right now, I love where it's at, and I wasn't expecting the ending of season 3 that happened.
Oh,
So,
yeah.
but if you keep going down this path, at some point it's going to start getting ridiculous. So I think season 4, maybe season 5 has to be the end before it just becomes off the rails. But I really enjoy the series. It's creepy the way they do it.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's nice.
I think they're doing a good job where they don't want it to just be an ongoing series. They've got a definite ending in mind here. And nice thing is they're not long seasons. They're like, 10, 12 episodes.
Yeah. The only thing that annoys me about these type of shows, and like they did this in X-Files too, with like Scully and stuff. At some point, you have the skeptic in the show, but at some point when they experience so much stuff, Like, how are you like this far in and you're still not believing anything? Like, like Scully, all the way,
Well,
like they went like 10 seasons and she was still the skeptic. It's like,
well, if you notice, so in this third season, if you go back and watch this again, it's the two main skeptics. You get
yeah,
Mike Colt's character who's not, and then the other two are, especially the Indian guy's more skeptical
yes,
than the female. But they all come from different They're both looking at it from different logical ways,
right,
and majority of the time they figure out what's going on and the reason is, but they're still having some things that both of them are wrestling with that they know is they haven't been able to explain,
yeah,
and they're not fully coming around, which is good because if they did, it'd be like, okay, I believe right now. Okay, now you lose that
yeah,
objectiveness they need to have. But they realize, and they both admitted this last season, that there are things that are happening that we can't fully explain yet, but we're working on it.
right,
So that's where the difference is. So
yep.
I don't think they'll both become fully believers, but I think they'll come to realize that there is definitely something more that can't always be explained.
Yeah. My favorite episode, I think, as far as we lost Brett. I think Brett disappeared, so I don't know if he'll come in. We're kind of at the end of the show anyway. So, there's Brett. Brett came back. He disappeared somehow.
Button on my mouse by accident, it just popped me all the way back out to the. Right, what?
My favorite individual episode though was when Ben was it Ben he gets trapped in that basement.
Oh, that was such a great episode last season.
Yeah.
That one really messed with his mind a lot.
Yeah, that was my favorite
Yeah.
solo episode, I think, of that. But anyways, looking forward to where that goes.
Yeah.
So, all right.
So cool.
I think that wraps it up.
All right. Hey, we'll see y'all next week. We'll have some more fun stuff to talk about. We'll update you on the Indiegogo campaign, as well as I don't know, some other fun stuff. We'll figure it out. We always do. So
That's right.
see y'all.
See ya.